anytime you're struggling as a parent, think about you 20 years from now and how you wouldn't do anything to go back and experience that moment with your kids 20 years ago right now, even if it's hard, because 20 years from now, it's not going to matter. And you're going to want to go back and spend that time with them, even if they're being, difficult.
You are listening to the Famous at Home podcast with Dr. Josh and Christy Straub.
Because when it's all said and done, we all want to know that we were famous at home. Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. We have a fun interview today for you. Before we jump in, here's a word from our sponsors. Hey everybody, Josh Straub here with Famous at Home. We want to introduce you to the Famous at Home Starter Bundle. This is something we created just for you. All you have to do is click the button to sign up to receive our workbook, 7 decisions to putting your family center stage. You'll also get a feelings chart handout that you can implement with your kids and with your spouse. And you'll also receive the 100 commonly held values worksheet so that you can sit down with your family and discuss the values that you want to set as a family that will provide vision for how and you want to lead your family in the direction that you're going to head in. So you get those 3 things right away as soon as you sign up. In addition to that, we will send to you our top podcast episodes on marriage, parenting, and family, the most listened to and the most foundational for developing emotional connection with your loved ones. You'll also receive past newsletters, our exclusive weekly newsletter. You'll be enrolled to receive that on an ongoing basis. These are real-time newsletters of what's happening in our lives and what we're doing and implementing to be famous at home that we want to give to you, just weekly nuggets to keep us equipped every single week. And then you'll also receive the weekly podcast episodes as well. This starter bundle is all free. We want to give it to you. Just click the link to sign up. Welcome back. So today, Taylor Calmus from Dude Dad joins the Famous at Home podcast. We interviewed John Tyson a few weeks ago. Christy interviewed me last week on Fatherhood. Today, Taylor Calmus joins us, and he has a content creation organization, studio. I mean, you name it, he's everywhere. They've got long form videos, short form videos, but he recently wrote a children's book called Dad and the Recycling Bin Roller Coaster. It's actually a super fun read, a super fun book. We came across him just watching some of his videos, seeing him making being a dad fun. And I know there's so much pressure a lot of times, and it isn't just for dads. I mean, this is for parents. I think he tells a beautiful story about his mom in this episode and what his mom gave him. You heard me last week talk about, if you listened last week, you heard me talk about how we honor our parents. And he was just so honoring of his parents as I asked him about how his parents influenced him and who he's become as a father. And so now that he's got 4 kids, he actually started this right before he had his first child as a way to stay creative in being a dad. Now here he is 4 children later and just coming up with these amazing projects. He's got a number of different books out. This was his first children's book. We'd love for you to take a look at that. That'll be in the show notes today. He also has a television program called Super Dad, and that's on the Magnolia Network, where he's doing do-it-yourself projects for other dads to stay creative in the backyard for their own kids. And so he's a lot of fun, very creative thinker. And we also get into just awesome conversation about how we bring our kids into and integrate into what we're doing. And so without further ado, here's my interview with Taylor Calmus. Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. Got a new friend today on the podcast, Taylor Calmus of Dude Dad. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to introduce, so you have we'll talk about your children's book. We'll talk about all these things. What I love about you, we were just talking about this before we hit record, is you make being a dad fun. And I would love for you to just introduce your family to us and introduce a little bit of your story and just the whole idea that you wanted to keep fun and creativity in what it looked like to be a dad and where a lot of this started from.
Yeah. So, I mean, it all kind of started because I've always been a content creator. But entering into fatherhood, I wanted to still have that outlet. And I thought, oh, well, why don't I start making content about being a dad? Then that way I can be creative while being a dad. And I named it Dude Dad because I wanted to be about sort of like keeping who you were while still being a dad and not like just turning into the basic dad, if you will.
It reminds
You
me of
know,
those.
the
It reminds me of those Prudential insurance commercials where it's like, "Don't be like your parents."
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And I don't have anything against my parents,
yeah.
but yeah, exactly. I know what you're saying. Um, so that was kind of the whole idea behind it, and to just show the struggles and also the joys of fatherhood. Um, but you're sort of just embracing that chaos and being okay with that and making the most of it because what else are you going to do? You got to sort of wake up every day and choose to enjoy it and then choose to take those moments in, and even if you're struggling, to just be like, you know what, the house is a mess, but everybody's having fun. you know
Yeah.
a dirty house usually means that something fun is happening.
Isn't that the truth? My goodness, we just had friends over last night. Normally we don't have friends over this late, but they were here like 11 o'clock at night. And I mean,
Oof.
they've got 4 kids, we've got 3 kids, and I had just mowed the grass earlier in the day. And by the time they leave
Oh
last night,
no.
the whole house was just covered in grass, like dead grass laid all over the place. I'm like, you know what? I laughed about it because I'm like, we had fun. Like the kids had a
Yeah.
blast. Like it was like, and that was a rare occasion because usually I'm asleep by 9 o'clock or 9:30. But it was fun. Everybody was having fun. When you introduce your family, tell us a little bit the ages of your kids. Kind of as a dad right now, you're also in the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 4 kids: 7, 5, 2, and baby. So we've got all kind of those early stages going on right now. um the baby's honestly the easiest, because babies can't move, and he's his diapers aren't that bad because he's still just nursing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
my wife nurses him, so she's kind of taking care of all that. The trouble is we have 3 others that all run away and talk back. So yeah, we're kind of you got a lot of different situations going on right now. uh yeah, but
Yeah.
my wife is great, and I'm doing my best. So
I love.
we're doing it.
I
We're in the
love it.
midst of it.
And you're keeping it fun, which is one of the things that I want to bring to this conversation today and with everybody listening, because I think you take pressure off this sense of like, because as dads, we feel very pressured with, we got work responsibilities, we've got people texting us, we've got emails coming in, we've got all the other stuff going on around us in culture. Then we've got our wives' needs that we need to meet and all this. And it can just feel like so much responsibility. Like, I just cut the grass. Kids, why didn't you stay outside? Why do you got to be running through the house? And yet
Yeah.
you're seeing a different perspective of, wait a minute, no, this means they had fun. Where do you get that from? Like, how do you, when you're in the trenches like that, and the kids are all over the place, and you want to lose your dad cool,
Yeah.
where are you getting what's your perspective shift? What could you give us as dads, and even as moms listening? Where's your perspective shift when it's like you're on the verge of wanting to lose your cool, but at the same time you realize the kids are just being kids, and they're actually maybe not being disrespectful or disobedient, but they're just being kids, and I've got to channel my inner child as well as a dad or as a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first off, I'll say that I also lose my cool sometimes. I don't want anyone to ever think that I have it that put together, because I don't think anyone
Yeah,
does,
I agree wholeheartedly.
but to have that knowledge and be always striving to respond differently, I think is key. And, and what I do in sort of making all these videos and putting myself out there like that, it's also a constant reminder to walk the walk,
So good.
and to try to respond differently when we can. And, and remember that they're just kids and they're just learning, and that they're not going to get it the second time you tell them or the fifth time you tell them. You're going to have to keep saying some of the same things over and over and over again. And just to have that patience, which is one of the hardest things to have, especially when you have four. Here's what happens when you have four. When you have four kids, at every given moment throughout the entire day, one of them is upset. So you go through life for a period of time where someone is always upset. And it's almost never two at a time. There's always like one, especially with my older two, there's always like one of them will be really having a tough time and being, a total pill. And the other one will be like, oh, wow, Dad, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. Like, that's so immature right now. It's like, okay, bro, you did that 2 minutes ago. Like, you were that person.
Yeah.
You guys just switched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And bringing that, it's constant relationship management.
Yeah.
All the time. Right. And so I'm going to switch to the kids book, because you wrote a kids book. This is your first one, and you've done a lot of different creative stuff, right? And you're a content creator. And I love that I'm going to go to this for a second. Your identity is as a father, as opposed to your identity as a content creator. And what you've done is you have taken the gifts that you have as being a content creator, and you are using those to enhance your role and your identity as a father. And I think that's pretty significant. Can you speak to that a little bit, and how because I think that's significant for all of us in a world where we are being told, the first question we ask when we show up somewhere is, what do you do? I think there's this, our identity is in what we do, but it feels like, and just watching your videos and watching your content, you are a father, and you're a father, and you have just enhanced your ability to be a father and help other fathers by using your gifts. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I've never heard it put like that, but I really like that. And it's true because, as a content creator, I'm a storyteller, right? But my role, you're right, is as a father. But so as a father, I'm also then a content creator, and I am creating content about being a father, which forces me to analyze what it means to be a father so much more, to be able to tell that story and to tell the nuances of it, and like the sort of just the truths of it, right? And like whenever we were making a piece of content, like I was just talking to my team about this earlier, of like, we're talking about making a vasectomy video, right? Because we have 4 kids now, whatever. And the issue is I might not be able to get an appointment for like a year, and they're like, we could just make the video anyway. And I'm like, well, we could, but we know content always hits better when it's coming from a place of truth, and we're not just, researching and like coming up with stuff. But if I actually go through that and then we write that piece of content, I could be a lot more truthful in the writing and making it more real and raw, and it'll then connect to people more, rather than me just being like, oh, it hurts, and like, what hurts? What exactly hurts? What exactly does it feel like?
That's good. Yeah. No, it's so good. And I think for all of us, it puts a mirror in our face. You actually have a camera telling your story, and all of us, it's as if, I mean, before God, we have this mirror in our face all the time anyway. It's like we have to make sure that we are living our lives in such a way that we are being seen, because the integrity of our story is going to be reflected outside of us at some point.
Yeah.
And right. And so you have that accountability, as you said earlier, to live that. Tell me about I want to get into some of your content, because I just recently saw this piece of content, and I loved it. Your son hired a lawyer
Yes.
Can you just share, like, I just want to invite people, like, go to Instagram, go to Doodad, go follow kind of for fun, for entering into and just seeing things from a completely different perspective and making light of the ways that our kids view the world around them and the way we view the world around them. You bring that story out in such a cool way.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about even just that piece of content.
Sure. So that piece it's called If Toddlers Had Lawyers. And basically the idea is, there's all these things that our toddler wants from us or doesn't want from us, right? So we're like, okay, what, that's sort of the truth of it is what most toddlers generally want. Then the vehicle we put that in is, what if this is a lawyer scene? Okay. So how would his lawyer fight for his wants and needs in this piece? So that's sort of the game. That's the setup, is it's just like it's a lawyer fighting for all the things the toddler would want. And we have my son, who's 2, Otto, sitting next to him the whole time, just being adorable. And every once in a while, he can't talk yet, but every once in a while he would kind of gobble gobble at the lawyer, and then he would just turn to him and make it a part of the thing. Super fun. But the ending I love too is that we basically make a counter offer for all these wants and needs, and we're just like, one dum-dum. And the toddler, of course, is like,
of course, yep, I'm in.
Totally. Forget all my other demands. I will drop them for that dum-dum. Because that's what we do all the time with our kids. Like, hey, we need you to smile for this photo, or just sit, take a dum-dum.
Yeah.
Long car ride, dum-dum,
We have we're potty training right now, our toddler, and there's a bag of M&Ms sitting up by the toilet. It's just like,
there you go.
Here it is. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of what Taylor is putting out there into the world. We're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, Josh Straub here with Famous at Home. I want to introduce you to something if you haven't already seen it. This is our new book, Famous at Home, 7 Decisions to Putting Your Family Center Stage in a World Competing for Your Time, Attention, and Identity. When a couple or a family comes to us and says, hey, Josh, we have a question. What do we do next? We always point to this book. This is our coaching playbook. This is the play-by-play strategies that we use to help families to be famous at home. And so if you have not picked up this book yet, we highly encourage you to get a copy. You can see a link in the show notes. You can click a link right here in the video, and we would love for you to be able to get a copy of this in your hands. If you want to go deeper than the podcast episodes, this is the way to do that. It's our way of walking alongside your family to help you be famous at home. All right, so I want to talk about your children's book. You've got this new children's book you guys just released. Yes, Dad and the Recycling Bin Roller Coaster. So this children's book, it's your first children's book, but you've built your brand around do-it-yourself projects, and it really ties in well with the book. And so we'd love for you, what inspired you to write a kid's book, and tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So, it's sort of a fun story that's, it's basically a true story of it's about mom leaving the house to go, pick up a few things from the store. So the 3 kids are left at home with dad, and he decides, oh, how can I entertain you guys today? Let me build this cool, crazy thing. But then the kids are like, nah, we don't like it. So then it kind of keeps going and going, and he keeps just building bigger and bigger things until finally nobody's having fun. And sort of the whole crux of the thing is, he's all sad and is going to put his tool belt away because he's like, nobody's having fun. I don't know what to do. And then his the middle child comes over and tugs at his pant leg and says, well, but Dad, you won't fit in the rocket. And then the baby explains, we have this really cool tool where the baby we have to put all the baby's words in translations because he can't talk. So he's goo goo bomb poo poo, and the translation is, we just want to hang out with you, Dad. Yeah. Also, I just pooped.
It's so good.
But so it kind of like came from like, you know, building all this stuff for my kids, which I still love to do. It's a passion of mine. Um, but I kind of realized, that my kids enjoyed it, but what they enjoyed more than that was me just spending time with them, and not, and I think it can speak to all parents in that, like, we come up with these like grandiose things we have to go do for our kids, and the reality is you don't really need to. Like, you don't really have to take the expensive Disney trip, right?
Yeah.
You could just put them in a wheelbarrow and push them around the backyard, and they'll probably have just as much fun. I think the Disney trip is more for us to pull us out of our own world so that we can then fully focus on them. We need our own distractions so that we can then spend quality parental time with them.
Yeah, it's so good. And that's what our kid, it's so often like, I just think of our little guy who just turned 3, just constantly just saying, Dad, play with me. Play with me. Like that's his words. Like, play with me, Dad.
Yeah.
It's like, he can now speak, and now he can actually say, Dad, play trains, play trucks, play. He just wants me on the ground with him. And you actually built a roller coaster.
Yes. Yeah. So after we wrote the book,
tell us about
after I wrote the book. So this is where my kids like turned the script on me, because I wrote the book and then I like showed it to them or read it to them the first time. And they were like, that's great, Dad, but you didn't build a roller coaster. And I was like, all right, well, challenge accepted. So then we built a backyard roller coaster, and I didn't know if it was going to work, but it does work, and it is super fun. And we had like the whole neighborhood over here riding it the other day. It's a blast. So
that's
be sure to,
check out.
Yeah, the video turned out so good. I'm so proud of that thing, because it just, when you see the process and everything we go through just to like get this thing built.
Yeah.
And there's like quite a few videos online of like how to build PVC roller coasters, but nobody does a very good job of really explaining all the little details that you need to know. So it's still a massive undertaking. But when you see us go through all that, and then the end, you see the whole, like, us test it for the first time, and then like the whole neighborhood over here, all the kids riding it, and like the POV of their faces just while they ride this thing is so cool, and such a cool just experience to like experience them experiencing it.
It's so cool. Yeah. I make sure, again, you go check out Taylor's videos, take a look at his, to get this children's book, and then also even social media, Instagram, YouTube, all the videos. It's inspiring. It's super inspiring. But the thing that we do with our kids is we use YouTube videos as a way, whether it's Dude Dad, whether it's Mark Rober, whether it's Dude Perfect, whoever it is that we're watching, we use it as a way to say, hey, let's be creative and not consumers. And so we tell our kids, like, let's watch this, let's consume this in order to go then create. And you inspire that, I believe, for all of us as parents, but then also with our kids, is challenging ourselves to learn something new, to take on a project like building a roller coaster. Not saying that we all need to go build a roller coaster in a backyard, but taking on a project, and instead of, and I'm speaking of this as me as a man, I think a lot of us as men feel incompetent to be able to use tools or to be able to do certain things. Yeah. It's like, we know our competency, we know our giftings, and we feel that we go to work and we do well there. But then when we come home, we're kind of not sure, what we, where we fit and how we fit. And I just want to challenge everybody to use your videos and what you're doing as an inspiration to just go try something new with your kids, and to enter into their world and to invite them into it with you. There's a couple of different projects that I'm working on with my kids where I don't have a clue about it, but we're going out and we're learning it together. And I feel like that's what you invite us into.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you say that. That's awesome. We got a new one that we're working on right now. We just did that I think is super obtainable for any parent, but we made cardboard boats like that you can actually ride in.
That's cool. Okay.
So it's just layers and layers of cardboard, and lots of glue, but you get that thing like 5, 6, 7 layers thick, and you get the right kind of cross bracing and stuff. And yeah, we went out and paddled these things like canoes the other day, and like had this big race for this fundraiser. And it was a blast. And like, I think there was probably like 16, 17, 18 boats out there.
Wow.
But yeah, like there's things like that. That's what I always tell people. Like, if you don't know how to use tools, just start with cardboard. Just make a slide out of cardboard down the stairs. Make, little cardboard cars that they can stick their feet through and run around the house and play cars. Like, make a fort out of cardboard. Like, just start there, and then start buying lots and lots of tools.
Yeah. Hey, how do you manage between doing creative stuff? This is what you do for a living. You're creating content, you're telling stories. How do you manage doing that with being a dad? So have you found that your work, there's a great quote that, when our work and our play are so intertwined that people don't even know what you're doing, whether you're working or playing, is when you're at your best, kind of thing. It's like, are you separating those two things? Are they together? Like, I'd imagine it does get hard, and I know you've got a team, but just in terms of how you're managing creating content, but also just entering in and being a dad. How's that work in terms of managing your work?
It's pretty intertwined for me. It's pretty hard to not, it's pretty hard to separate the two of them for me, because they are just so interwoven.
Yeah.
There's definitely days where I shut off business mode and I like, all right, today is just family day. I don't need to film anything. I'm not going to take a photo of anything. I'm just going to be present, which is really tough, because sometimes it's like, oh, what a great moment. What a great moment that we could share, so you kind of have to consciously do that. I think the toughest thing is like when we're doing, with the guys, my team, or the two main guys I work with are both also dads. And we're like, when we're doing the boat race thing, right? Like, my head was in like, okay, we need to capture this, and this for this content. And normally they're the guys that do that. But because we're like doing it with our kids and stuff, they're not in business mode, and they're just like, oh, let's go race the boats. I'm like, who's filming it? Are we getting different angles? Do we have this or that? And then I have to sort of go into overdrive business mode, while still trying to like be a dad. It's a real juggle sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, the amount of experiences that I've exposed my kids to because of this whole thing, I think will outweigh any of that. And, I think they're too young right now, because they've just grown up with it too. So it's like normal to them.
Yeah.
But someday, because I had this same realization of like, when you grow up and then you look back and you're like, oh, dang, my parents really set it up for me. Like, I really had a cool childhood. I hope, I pray that my kids will someday say that, where they'll look back and go like, oh, dang, not everybody's dad does this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how cool,
Yeah. And to what degree, or especially for the older ones, to what degree are you seeing their giftings being invited into it to even be a part of it and try to start to, like, do you see them doing any of that? I'm just curious, like anything like that they think that the video editing or anything of that nature would be something they're drawn to, or are they just still being kids?
They're still being kids. Like, my son, has kind of gotten into YouTube, and he likes, they like videos, and he'll talk about wanting to make videos sometimes, but like, we need to make some of like his videos, because his videos are like, are like the things that are geared towards him on YouTube, which are like really over the top, like challenges and gaming videos and stuff like that, which is a world I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
It's honestly a world I don't want to know anything about, but at the same time, like, I realize that it's something that he likes. So I'm trying to figure out how to connect with him on that. The challenge videos thing, like, he's like, oh, let's go out and make a video about who catches the most fish in one day, because he's obsessed with fishing too. I'm like, yeah, I guess we could make that video. That might be interesting. But
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah,
I love that.
but I do want to do one at some point where we basically have our kids write the story. I'm like, all right, what's the story? And we'll just record them telling the story, and then we'll go out and film whatever story they told.
They created. Yeah.
That could be really fun. Yeah, so we'll see. We got some ideas for that. I'd love to put them in the driver's seat more, but they're also kids, so their attention span is so short.
Oh, 100%.
That, like, right now, if like my two older ones, a 7-year-old and 5-year-old, like, I try to not put them in too much stuff unless they can just really be like present in the moment, just doing, like when we do build the roller coaster and stuff, it's like, let me just film you enjoying this thing rather than like, I need you to say this, 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 and this.
Yeah,
that's
so
when
good.
It gets tricky.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to manufacture something that's not real.
Yeah.
Right. Like you want to, I think for me, I think it's just fascinating for us to, and I'm asking this from personal experience. I mean, our kids are now 10 and 8, they'll be 11 and 9, but our oldest especially, I mean, he's creating trick shot videos and, just stuff that he's seeing online. And then he'll do, he'll go through the Mark rope. I mean, he creates all these like scientific, ball rolling, Kiva block kind of contraptions and films them, and he gets super excited about it. And I'm trying to channel that for him. And I think it's important for each of us as dads to enter into our kids' worlds and see what is it that they're excited about and follow that, just as you're talking about, and being able to invite them into those things. And so I think the intertwining, the integrated concept of, hey, we have a business and yet we're also a family. I think there's a lot of value in that integration, that intertwining, that I just was curious of as it really, because we do that. I mean, we're doing this all the time. I mean, I just overheard my kids talking to my wife about, hey, can we do a family podcast? And so, I can see their gears shifting. And I just think it's important for all of us as parents to be thinking about how are we pursuing our kids, as opposed to this whole idea of individualistically, we live in this Western culture that's just pumping individual, let's raise our kids for 18 years and then individually just send them out into the world to do their thing, as opposed to the family being the crux and the core of how they're being launched out into the world, and that their parents believe in them and see their gifts and their value and what they bring to the table and how we can steward that really, really well. And so I think I know the kids are super young, but I feel like you're doing that as you integrate being a father with your giftings as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I feel like it's still kind of an experiment.
Yeah. Oh, I get it.
Yeah, we've got a few friends like Penn and Kim Holderness. We talk with them about this a lot because their kids are older.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of conversations with them about like, okay, how are you handling this? What are you doing with this?
Good.
Yeah. And, and then just kind of listening to each kid to see what, how they're responding to this whole thing. Like my daughter loves it. Like whenever we did a book signing and stuff, and we're like, I think Juno would like to be at that. So she came and like, she happily took photos with everybody. Like, people come to get photos with me and Heidi, and Juno just gets in the picture. She's like, we're taking this photo. So she's like, there's a whole bunch of people that have pictures with me and Heidi and Juno.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think it's a great, we continually think about how do we integrate our kids into everything that we're doing. I'm taking them with me to speaking in events and just seeing where their giftings are and just trying to manage that. And I think just the importance of this conversation is just how do we as parents really integrate our kids, as opposed to us seeing our individual careers as our individual careers, our kids going off to school and their individual things, but all of us as a family and as a team thinking through how are we stewarding the hearts of each person really, really well, And I feel like, and it's a hard thing to navigate because you're in the middle of it at 7, 5, 2, and like, it's like, we're figuring this thing out. But I think, it sounds like you've got great people around you that you're having these conversations with. And so again, I just want to reiterate to those listening, like, surrounding yourselves, and you said this, and we're getting ready to go into a series on this where we're interviewing families that we look to who we go, man, whatever you did, we want that. And surrounding yourselves with those people. You've done that, sounds like, with the Holdernesses. I want to ask you this question as we get ready to wrap up. And I know I'm asking questions that are just kind of all over the place, but I love seeing the way that you're cultivating your family through the content and the stories that you're telling. And I would love, we were watching Magnolia. We were watching one of your shows the other night. Highly encourage families to go to Magnolia if you have it and watch Taylor's shows. But your dad's involved. And, to what degree, what did your dad give to you? I just think multi-generationally, like, for you to have the passion to do this. I think so often this happens because there was a transfer of something coming from our own dads that we want to pay attention to. And I would just love to hear a little bit about the influence that your parents have had in your life and what you feel like they've given you that you're now passing to your next generation, this multi-generational blessing type of factor,
Yeah. So I'll say two things. First off, I just want to say, because I think this happened, I saw this happening a lot, and I finally kind of like realized that it was happening. But because what I do is Dude Dad, and it's all about fatherhood, a spotlight gets put on my dad a lot. And my dad is awesome, and I've got all kinds of great stories about my dad, but it's not to overlook my mom, because my mom, I realized this recently, like, she's a huge reason I am who I am and that I'm able to do what I do, because I grew up with a mom who just, whatever she wanted to do, whether she knew how to do it or not, didn't matter. She'd just figure it out, like anything, like, this is a woman that had like 22 different jobs over the course of my childhood.
Wow.
because dad like had the what do you call it? Bacon and the eggs job. He had the main job. So but he was a traveling salesman. So he was gone a couple nights a week. But he still made it to like all of our baseball games and stuff because he just was a present father, even though his work took him away. Yeah. But that meant that mom stayed at home with us, but then she always had these little part-time jobs and she would just figure out how to make it work. But she did everything from like painting houses, cleaning hog barns, to like, she was a secretary at a clinic for a while. Then she got a degree in floral design and started doing that for a while. Wow. Then she was like, you know what? I'm going to open up my own coffee shop. So then she figured out how to do that. She opened up a coffee shop. And then she was like, you know what? I want a consignment shop. So she started her own consignment shop. And then she like taught herself how to shoot archery. She like was a part of a search and rescue dog team for a while and taught German shepherds how to find people. She was in the guards, she was in the guards before she was a mother. Like all of these things that you're just like, wait, what? Like I'm now referred to her as like the Dos Equis mom, the most interesting mom in the world.
Exactly. It's amazing.
But we grew up with this mentality of like, you want to do something, well, figure it out, try it, go for it, and that's the thing that I want to pass on to my kids is anything they want to do is obtainable. They just have to figure it out. They might not be good at it. That's okay. That doesn't mean you can't still do it or figure it out. There's the I can't is not something I want my kids to ever say. I want them to just figure it out, so that combined with my dad's work ethic, and just like being a very honest, very like hardworking, get her done kind of guy. Like my mom always would dream up the projects and she'd be like, hey, let's build the kids a batting cage. And then my dad would have to go, all right, let's figure that out. Let's build the kids a tree house. Okay. She's like, I think it should go here. I think it should look kind of like this. And he'd go, all right. And my dad wasn't a great carpenter, but he still figured it out. He figured it out.
And he did it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after we stopped using the batting cage, my mom was like, you know what? that's a chicken coop now. Like, let's get chickens,
Incredibly
you know?
resourceful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Which is a lot of, it's everything that I see in you is just the resourcefulness of fatherhood. Yeah. In the middle of it all.
Yeah.
So Taylor, I would love for you as we close just to share one piece of encouragement or advice that you have for those listening today.
I heard this piece on social media recently, but I love it, and I think it's a super awesome piece of advice, but especially for people with young kids. Anytime you're struggling as a parent, think think about you 20 years from now and how you wouldn't do anything to go back and experience that moment with your kids 20 years ago right now, even if it's hard, because 20 years from now, it's not going to matter. And you're going to want to go back and spend that time with them, even if they're being, difficult.
Yes. Oh, that's good. That long-term perspective, it's very helpful. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Even for me, I'm like, golly.
Good luck. Because in the moment, it sounds easy right now, but in the moment, you'll be like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if I want to experience this again.
Yep. Long-term perspective.
Yeah.
Well, and it
makes you think.
Yeah. And even when they're not being pills, but just the fact that I've got something to go do and they're saying, Daddy, play with me. And I'm like, okay, I'm caught between this. I have work to do. In 20 years, will that work that I had to do in that very moment have been so urgent that it superseded? And there might be times that it is, but when that becomes the consistent thing that we choose over time, 20 years from now, I think we look back and we go, man, I wish I wouldn't have worked as much, which by the way, is one of the greatest in end of life surveys is one of the greatest regrets is I wish I wouldn't have worked as much.
Yeah, I think there's balance in that though too. My wife and I were talking about this for like the last week of school. The last week of school, there was like all these different like little events and things that we could go. And like, Monday we spent like 3 hours at an ice cream social for my son, right?
Yeah.
And then like, okay, cool. That was longer than expected. Then the next day, my daughter has kindergarten the musical thing where we come and watch him sing and stuff. And we're there for a couple hours the next day. And then the next day there was something else. I was like, all right, babe, we've got 4 kids. We've got to like pace ourselves. Like one of us should come to all of these, but maybe not both of us at everything because we have to also do the other stuff, and if you're, so I just want to say that to encourage parents that like, yes, try to be there, do whatever you can so that one of you is there, and trade off. Don't just have it be just the one parent is at everything and the other parent's never there, but don't feel bad if you can't make everything, because there's a lot, if you've got 4 kids, like it'd be at least a part-time job to be at all of the little extra things.
Well, and the last week of school is in and of itself.
For both of you? Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, good grief. I mean, there's seasons, right? There's the last week of school. There's the, Christmas concerts, and there's all different seasons where that is like just so overwhelming. And so, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I think that's important. And then just also,
but you gotta, you gotta have somebody there. Yeah, because otherwise, you don't want to be the parent of the kid who looks up and can't find their parents.
Yeah.
And there's like the one kid that doesn't have somebody there to say hi afterwards. Woo.
Yeah.
You've seen those videos and how that affects those kids.
Oh, big time. And I also think it's important too, and we found this to be the case, where I will check in with my kids from time to time to say, hey, listen, mom's been with you a lot. Would you want mom to go to do this with you, or would you rather have dad go? And, just even checking in with them, like, which parent do you want? Do you feel like you need time with? I think that sometimes that's also an important factor too. Anyway, Taylor, thank you. So I feel like we could talk for hours. I appreciate you taking the time that you have with us today. Where can people find you? Let people know how they can get in touch with you and find what you're doing.
Yes, all platforms. Just search Dude Dad. All the long form stuff is on YouTube and Facebook, and all the short form stuff is everywhere. So lots of stuff out there. If you've never seen our stuff before, you've got a long way to catch up.
Love it. Yeah, the stuff you've put out there is just it's amazing. I don't know how you do it, but
you know what's really fun is to like go back and look at my videos from 7 years ago and see how much this process has aged me.
Yeah, that's humbling for sure.
Yeah, see me at, one baby to now 4 kids 7 years later. I'm older. No one cards me anymore.
Hey, and I want to share something with you too. That 7 years has gone by fast. So when you when you think of 20 years from now, 20 years from now is not that long away when you think about the advice you just gave us. And so I think it's important for us to pay attention to that, because as they say, right, the days are long, but the years are short. Those years just keep getting shorter and shorter. So
yeah, for sure.
Taylor, thank you so much. We will put all of these links in the show notes for ways for you to find Dude Dad and Taylor's content. Until next week, keep in mind that the greatest red carpet you'll ever walk is through your front door.